43 missed calls. That's what I saw the morning after I posted the photos, snow-dusted porch pine trees, my caption, "Best Christmas gift I could ask for." For years, my family forgot to invite me to Christmas. This time, they remembered within hours only to announce that my brother and his pregnant wife would be moving in. They thought my silence meant guilt. It didn't. It meant countdown. By the time they sat me down at that so-called family dinner, I'd already prepared something waiting for them, something that would make this Christmas one they'd never forget. For as long as I can remember, Christmas in our family was never about warmth. It was about presentation. My father, Richard, a high-ranking investment executive, liked to say that reputation was a family's greatest asset. My mother, Diane, a former TV anchor turned philanthropist, was the kind of woman who smiled for charity cameras but forgot the name of the waitress pouring her wine. And then there was Lucas, my older brother, the golden child. Every success of his was a family event. Every achievement of mine was background noise. When I was 10, they forgot my birthday because Lucas had a soccer tournament. I sat alone at the kitchen table, a single candle stuck into a store-bought muffin. My grandmother Ruth called that night furious that no one had celebrated. She was the only one who ever noticed the small things, the only one who made me feel seen. Years later, nothing changed. Lucas became a corporate attorney. Mom bragged about him to her social circle, and Dad called him the future of our family. When I graduated with honors, they sent flowers, no card, no call. I told myself it didn't matter, but every holiday proved otherwise. Our house back in Cherry Hills Village looked perfect from the outside, 6 bedrooms, white shutters, manicured lawns, but it never felt like home. Behind the Christmas lights and designer wreaths were sharp whispers and invisible hierarchies. Every Christmas, Lucas's gifts filled half the living room, luxury watches, weekend, getaways, a new car when he turned 21. My presents, usually a generic card with the words, "Be grateful." Grandma Ruth would try to make up for it. She'd send me hand-knitted scarves or invite me over to bake cookies and listen to old carols on her piano. Those visits were the only times the holidays didn't sting. But after she retired and moved 2 hours away, I was on my own again. By the time I turned 30, I'd built a life far from theirs. I was now a creative director at Summit Creative Studio, a title I earned through sleepless nights and endless client rejections. My apartment was small, but it was mine. I hadn't been invited home for Christmas in over a decade, not once. And still each December I'd scroll through social media, see their smiling faces under the same chandelier captioned, "Family is everything," that phrase used to cut deep. Now it just made me tired. This year, though, something felt different. For the first time, I didn't feel that old ache. I wasn't waiting for an invitation that would never come. I was waiting for something else, something I didn't know yet but would soon find. They'd forgotten me every year. I was about to remind them exactly who they'd overlooked. It started with a number on a screen, $90,000. That was my end-of-year bonus from Summit Creative Studio. 6 months of leading a nationwide campaign, countless nights sleeping under fluorescent light, and now that effort had a price tag. I stared at the deposit notification the way some people stare at fireworks, half in disbelief, half in exhaustion. My first thought wasn't to celebrate. It was to share the news, but then I stopped. Who would I even tell? My team would say congrats and move on. My family would find a way to turn it into Lucas's victory somehow. They always did. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the ache of another December alone, but I found myself scrolling through real estate listings, cabins, condos, mountain homes, and then there it was, a photo that made me stop breathing for a second. A house in Evergreen perched above the valley, wood and stone wrapped in glass. 3 bedrooms, 2 fireplaces, and a deck overlooking miles of pine trees, dusted white. The kind of place people go to heal or start over. I didn't overthink it. I called the agent that same night. Her name was Michelle Bright, voice fast talker, probably younger than me. She offered to set up a virtual tour. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. The next morning, sunlight cut through my blinds as her video popped up. She walked me through the room's wide kitchen, tall ceilings, every window spilling light like a promise. I could already picture myself there, quiet mornings with coffee and snow, evenings with music echoing against the wood. "I'll take it," I said before she even finished. Michelle blinked. "You mean you want to make an offer?" "No," I said. "I want to buy it." She laughed a little unsure. "You sure you don't want to sleep on it? I've slept on a lot of things. Not this one." By noon, I'd wired the deposit. By sunset, the papers were signed. For the next 3 weeks, I worked by day and built my dream by night. Furniture deliveries, paint stains on my hands, playlists bouncing off bare walls. It was exhausting, but it was mine. On December 21st, I stood in the finished living room, fire crackling, pine scent floating through the air. For the first time, I felt something close to peace. I took a few photos, the porch, the fireplace, the view, and posted them on Instagram. The caption was simple: "Best Christmas gift I could ask for." 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Then again, and again. Texts from Mom, Dad, Lucas, dozens of them. "Where did you get the money? You should have consulted us. We'll celebrate at your new place." I stared at the screen, smiling for the first time in a long time. They hadn't invited me to Christmas in years. Now they were inviting themselves. 2 days after I posted the photos, Mom's message popped up in the family group chat. "Family dinner, December 23, 7 p.m. Attendance not optional." I almost laughed. The same people who hadn't spoken to me in months were suddenly issuing summonses. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Instead, I marked the date on my calendar like it was a business meeting. When the night came, the Hale family mansion looked exactly the same, white lights wrapped around every railing, a 20-foot tree glowing in the corner, perfectly curated chaos. I parked at the end of the long driveway and took a deep breath. Dad opened the door before I could knock. Living room now. No hello, no hug, not even a smile. His tone was clipped like a CEO about to fire someone. Mom and Lucas were already seated, both looking as if they'd been rehearsing for a scene. Emily, my sister-in-law, sat beside him, hands resting on her pregnant belly, eyes downcast but calculated. Dad didn't waste time. "Whose house is that, Isabella?" I took off my coat, slowly folded it over the chair, and sat down. "Mine." "That's impossible," Mom said, voice trembling just enough to sound fragile. "You're only a creative director. You can't afford something like that." I smiled. "Apparently I can." Lucas leaned forward. "You should have talked to us before making a purchase that big. It's irresponsible." "Us," I said. "Since when does my paycheck require a family committee?" Dad exhaled loudly. "Enough. This attitude is exactly the problem. That house is far too big for one person. You should open it for Christmas. Let everyone celebrate together." Mom jumped in. "And Lucas and Emily will stay there for a few months after the baby comes. It's perfect for them. Peaceful, spacious." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. Then I saw the look in Lucas's eyes, entitled confident, like he was already redecorating in his head. I let out a small laugh. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the room. "You want to live in my house?" Mom clasped her hands. "Just until they find a bigger place," Dad added. "It's what families do, Isabella. We help each other." I looked from one face to another, the same faces that had forgotten me for years. "When have any of you ever helped me?" Silence. Dad's jaw tightened. "We raised you." "You raised Lucas," I said quietly. "I raised myself." Mom's eyes watered on cue. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, standing up. "Just honest. For 30 years, I'd been the forgotten one. But now they needed me, and they hated it." As I picked up my coat, Dad's voice turned cold. "If you walk out that door, you're cutting ties with this family." I paused, hand on the handle, and smiled faintly. "You cut me off years ago. I'm just making it official." The door clicked behind me, sealing 3 decades of silence into a single sound. They thought my silence meant surrender. It didn't. It meant strategy. The night after that dinner, I barely slept. Not because I was angry, but because I wasn't. For once, the rage was gone, replaced by a clarity so sharp it almost hummed. They wanted my house, my peace, the one thing I'd built without them, and they thought I'd hand it over out of guilt or tradition or some twisted version of family duty. They didn't understand. I'd spent my entire life earning things they got for free. I wasn't giving up this one. The next morning, I called Michelle, my realtor, and asked her to email me every document from the house purchase deed, mortgage, proof of ownership. Everything with my name on it, I said. She sent it within the hour. I printed every page, slid them into a thick white envelope, and tucked it into my bag. Then I waited. On December 23rd, the date they'd chosen for their family dinner, the text came. "Don't be late," Mom wrote. "We have things to discuss." I drove through the falling snow, the road curling through neighborhoods decked out in lights and inflatable Santas. Every house I passed looked warm, full-loved. By the time I reached theirs, the cold had settled deep inside my chest. The mansion glowed like a cathedral of money. Through the wide windows, I could see the long dining table already set, silverware polished, champagne, chilling smiles rehearsed. When I walked in, all conversation stopped. Dad stood at the head of the table, one hand gripping a glass, the other tucked into his pocket like a general before battle. "Good," he said. "You're here. Sit down." I didn't. I stayed standing. "Say what you came to say." Mom sighed as though I were the problem. "Isabella, please. It's Christmas. We don't want to fight." Lucas leaned back in his chair, smirking. "We just need to be practical. You have a new house sitting empty, and we have a baby on the way." "It's logical." "Logical," I repeated. "You mean convenient?" He shrugged. "Same thing." Dad set his glass down hard enough for it to chime. "Your brother needs support. Family supports each other." "Where was that support," I asked, "when you left me alone with Grandma every holiday for 10 years? When you forgot every birthday until I stopped reminding you?" Mom's face tightened. "We've made mistakes, but this is not the time to dredge up old pain." "That's the problem," I said softly. "You think pain has an expiration date?" The air shifted. No one moved. Even Emily looked up, her expression flickering between guilt and fear. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. "You want to talk about family? Fine. Let's start with honesty." Dad frowned. "What's that?" "The deed," I said, laying it on the table. "To my house. The one you think I bought for your son." Lucas scoffed. "You don't need to be defensive." "Oh, I'm not defensive," I said. "I'm documenting." Mom's voice cracked, the tremor rehearsed. "Isabella, we just want to be together for Christmas. You're taking this so personally." "Personally," I laughed. "You excluded me for 13 Christmases. The only time you remembered I existed was when I posted something you wanted." No one spoke. The fireplace crackled behind me, soft and cruel. Then Dad's temper broke. "You're being selfish. You've changed, Isabella. You've become cold, greedy, independent," I interrupted. "That's the word you're looking for." He stepped closer. "You will not talk to me like that." "I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. You can't guilt me into obedience." Lucas slammed his hand against the table. "You're part of this family, whether you like it or not." I looked straight at him. "You're right. I'm part of it. The part you forgot could survive without you." For a second, no one breathed. Then I did something none of them expected. I smiled. "Since we're being practical," I said, sliding a second envelope across the table, "here's a letter from my lawyer. It states that any attempt to access or reside in my property without consent will be considered trespassing. You'll find the relevant legal citations highlighted. Merry Christmas." Mom gasped. Dad's jaw clenched so hard I could hear the grind of his teeth. Lucas's smirk collapsed. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "I already did," I said. "That house is mine. The locks are coded. The cameras are live. You're not invited." Mom stood up suddenly, face red. "We gave you everything." "No," I said quietly. "You gave me nothing, and I made everything from it." Silence spread through the room like smoke. Even the music from the next room seemed to fade. I turned toward the door, but paused just long enough to meet Dad's eyes. "You said I was cutting ties." I said. "You were right. I'm finally free." I walked out before anyone could speak. Outside, the snow was falling harder, soft flakes landing on my coat, melting against the heat of my skin. I could still hear them shouting through the door, voices tangled in anger and disbelief. But for me, it was all fading like static I no longer needed to listen to. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already buzzing again. Calls from Mom, texts from Dad, a voicemail from Lucas. I let them ring until the screen went black, then I drove. The mountain road curved up through the dark, the world shrinking behind me. By the time I reached my house, midnight had passed. The lights I'd strung across the porch flickered softly, greeting me like an old friend. Inside, the fire was still warm. On the counter sat a half-empty bottle of wine, and beside it a single wrapped box I'd left for myself. Inside was nothing expensive, just a small silver keychain engraved with 3 words, "My own home." I sat by the window, looking out over the snow, and finally let out a breath I'd been holding for 30 years. I hadn't ruined Christmas. I'd reclaimed it. And somewhere down in the city, the people who once owned my silence were learning what it felt like to be ignored. They'd wanted to move into my house. Instead, they moved out of my life. Christmas morning came quiet and golden. My mountain house smelled like cinnamon and pine, the fireplace humming its slow rhythm. Outside, snow piled softly along the deck railing. Inside, laughter filled the air, not theirs, but mine. My cousins had driven up the night before, bringing food, music, and warmth that didn't need performance. Grandma Ruth sat near the window, knitting with her gentle smile. When I handed her coffee, she squeezed my hand. "You look peaceful," she said. "I am," I answered, surprised by how true it felt. My phone buzzed on the counter, 23 missed calls. I turned it face down. No guilt, no ache, just quiet. That afternoon, we played cards, roasted marshmallows, and sang badly off-key to carols Grandma loved. For once, no one was pretending. As night fell, I stepped outside alone. The valley glowed under the moonlight, endless and still. I'd spent years waiting for my family to remember me, but standing there, I realized being forgotten had set me free. I used to think being left out was the worst kind of pain, watching them smile in family photos, raise their glasses, pretend I never existed. I thought I wanted to be invited, seen chosen. But now I understand sometimes being excluded is the quietest blessing life gives you. It's the doorway to peace. Every wall I built, every door I locked, wasn't made of anger. It was made of boundaries. Boundaries that protect the version of me I fought so hard to become. I didn't buy that house to prove a point. I bought it to finally have a place where love wasn't conditional, where I didn't have to earn my seat at the table. They can keep their perfect dinners, their polished lies, their toast to appearances. I'll keep what they can't fake laughter. That's real warmth, that's earned silence, that feels like freedom. Sometimes peace doesn't look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like snow falling outside your own window, while the world that once hurt you keeps spinning somewhere far away. If you've ever had to choose peace over belonging, tell me in the comments. You're not weak for walking away, you're strong for finally coming home.